Hey guys, I'm Anais,
Hi, I'm Gianna.
Hi, I'm Karyme.
and we're from the Golden State Readers, a group of students across California working together to fight against book bans. Today, we are here with author Brandy Colbert to discuss book bans and her experiences as an author.
We're super excited to have you here, and we're so grateful for you taking the time to do this interview with us. For those who are unfamiliar, would you mind talking about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm Brandy Colbert. Thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. That was great. A lot of people say Colbert. Yeah, I am an author of several books for teens and younger kids. I primarily write, I guess, contemporary, realistic fiction and kind of venturing into some more historical fiction. And then I also have recently started writing nonfiction. And I live in Los Angeles. So I live in the Golden State as well.
It's so great to meet you and so exciting to have you here. We're wondering if you could tell us a little bit about why you decided to become a writer.
So I've been writing for a really long time, basically my whole life. I started writing when I was about 7 years old. We used to have to do, I grew up in Missouri, just for context, and we used to have to do these every year we would write books in our class. And that started probably in first grade, I think. And then I liked it so much that I started writing at home in my spare time. And it just kind of, I never stopped really. And then when I was in my early 20s, many years ago, I decided that I wanted to try to really get published. When I was younger, I said I wanted to be an author, but I didn't really know what it meant. But then as I got older, I decided, yeah, I really do want to be an author. So I started writing specifically for publication around that time and did all the kind of boring business stuff, like trying to find a literary agent and trying to figure out, which publishing house would be the best for me. And so I did all of that, and I wrote a lot of books while I was trying to find an agent. So I wrote about four books, I think, and then my fourth book that I wrote was the first one that got published 10 years ago in 2014 was when my first book came out.
Wow, that's so interesting. Well, can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind your book, Blackbirds in the Sky?
Yeah, absolutely. So Blackbirds in the Sky, I have it right here conveniently. I don't know if you can see it. My light's a little bright. But it is my first nonfiction book, and it came out in 2021, which was the 100th year anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. So this book is all about that event that happened in 1921. And yeah, it was my first nonfiction book, but I studied journalism. I have a journalism degree, so I kind of went back to my roots with that one, writing nonfiction. And it's essentially like a history book that I don't think reads like a history book, hopefully. So I get into all the sort of the what happened with the Tulsa Race Massacre, but what led up to it and sort of how the past informs the present.
So this might be a difficult question, but what has been your favorite book that you've written?
Oh, this is a hard question. Let's see. I mean, I am lucky enough that I do like all of my books that have been published because that's not always the case. Writing is really hard. But I would say I really love my first book, Pointe. It's about a ballet dancer growing up in the suburbs of Chicago. Um, Another one that's super special to me is The Only Black Girls in Town. That's my first middle grade book, and The Blackwoods that just came out in October, and then Blackbirds of the Sky. So see, I couldn't even pick out of 8 books. I still picked 4. So I would say those are my very top favorites.
It's so wonderful that you have so many works that you're so proud of and passionate about. We are wondering, is there, when you write, a message that you hope reaches your audience?
I guess I never write my books with a particular message in mind because it's really important for me for people to just sort of read them and kind of just take what they want from them. Like, I guess when I think about when I read or when I'm watching TV or movie or something, like I'm probably going to get something different from it than even like the person sitting next to me might get from it. But yeah, I guess I just want people to come to my books with an open mind because I do typically tackle some, kind of serious topics, which I think are important things, and which I think when I was growing up, a lot of these things weren't spoken about openly, like and they definitely weren't written about in books that I could just go pick up off the shelf. So yeah, I think it's important for my readers to keep an open mind is what I always want. But yeah, I never go in with a specific message, and I just want people to sort of like with the Tulsa Race Massacre book, Blackbirds in the Sky, like I definitely want people to learn something from it, but I know people are going to come at it with all different types of backgrounds and experiences. So it may kind of vary what they pick up on.
So, as an author, I'm sure you've read a lot of books. Do you feel like there's a book in particular that you feel like has shaped your life in a way?
Oh, wow. Yeah, so many books. I don't know if there's one particular book. I will say like it's typically more authors for me. Um, I will say Sula by Toni Morrison was really influential to me. I read it as in college. I took this really amazing women's literature course that introduced me to a lot of new authors that I had not been exposed to. And so we read Sula during that semester, and I was just like blown away because I grew up in a predominantly white area of the Midwest in Springfield, Missouri. And I don't know, like I read a lot, but I just didn't see a lot of books by Black authors that were sort of suggested to me, or, I just didn't find them. I don't know what it was, if they were even in the library because we had such a small Black population. So I just really wasn't exposed to as much diverse literature as I wanted to be. But when I read that book, it really changed. Yeah, it did. It really changed, like, I don't know, like what I realized you could do in literature, because I just kind of thought at the time, this sounds so naive, but I wasn't seeing that representation, in books that I read or books that I saw featured. And so I just kind of thought you get really right about Black women just sort of like living their lives and being flawed and getting to do all the things that the white characters in the books that I read did. And so I would say that that book was like Toni Morrison as a whole, of course, she's an amazing author, but like that book in particular really like expanded my worldview and what I am capable of as a writer.
So we know that books are really important. Do you remember a specific moment where you realized the severity of America's book banning crisis?
I remember I used to have sort of a more open website back in the day where you could email me through a form. And so I remember an educator down in Florida, she emailed me through that and said, this would have been, gosh, it was before the pandemic. So it was probably like 2018, 2019. And she said, a or some parents, or I can't remember who it was, if it was like a school district already, if it was just a few parents that are trying to ban Little and Lion, which was my second book that came out. And I was really, I don't know, I was kind of surprised and not surprised because I don't know, it's like a book that deals with a lot of stuff like sexuality and mental health and race and all that. So the messaging around book banning at that time was sort of focused on books that were honestly like published before I was even born. So a lot of things like, I don't know, just a lot of books that didn't feel current. And so I didn't realize that the book banning had actually kind of caught up to current books. There were also like a few that were typically, I don't know, just more high profile books, I guess, than mine. And so I was like, oh, like they've made it down to sort of these books now. And so that was kind of surprising, but that's the first time I remember hearing about it. I don't know if that was the first time one of my books was challenged. And from there, I heard about like the only Black girls in town because people didn't like that the main character has two dads, and just, yeah, and then Blackbirds in the Sky, of course. So it just felt like that was when I noticed it sort of starting to get traction. And then I just heard about, so many people's books who are being banned at a much like more rapid rate and a bigger rate than my own.
It's always super interesting to hear about the book banning issue from the perspective of an author, and to hear about how that experience has been for you, and seeing the impact on your stories. So we were just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, why you think storytelling is important.
I mean, I don't believe in any kind of censorship. I think I was really lucky to grow up in a house where my parents really encouraged reading and encouraged just really any kind of engagement with the arts, and they didn't limit what we read, maybe they limited a little bit of what we watched, but not really. And it was different because this was before the internet. So like we couldn't just go on and watch it. Like you had to sit down in front of a television set and watch it at a specific time and all of that. So it was like a little bit different. But I feel really lucky to have grown up in a house like that encouraged really just kind of, free speech, like free, engagement with art, however you want to say it. So I felt like at the time I could always read whatever I wanted to read. And there would be books around the house sometimes, or books I would get from the library that I would think I wanted to read them. And then I would pick them up and realize, you know what, I'm not ready for this. And so I would put it down and maybe I would come back to it later. Maybe I wouldn't, but I really appreciate it, especially looking back on that now, that the choice was mine and mine alone. And then no one else was making that for me. And so I really think that most of the time, people are smart enough to understand like what they're reading, and if it's too much for them, and they will put it down. I think that's still true today. But I believe like, one thing, especially with Blackbirds in the Sky, my nonfiction book, I believe knowledge is power. And so for me, it's really, really important to have this information out there. This topic specifically, the Tulsa Race Massacre, was a topic that was intentionally hidden, kind of buried away, so people wouldn't be able to talk about it and really reckon with it. And so for me to put a book out there about this after it being kind of hidden for so many years and so many people who are my age and even older not to know about it is really, really special. So I just, not to wax too poetic on reading and books, but I really do think books, change lives and open minds. And I know as a kid growing up in a pretty sheltered environment, books were super important for me because they exposed me to lives and experiences that were so different from anything I could have ever imagined, and also anything that was sort of happening in my sheltered hometown.
I really loved what you said about having the choice to be able to put something down, because that's really just like our entire message here at Golden State Readers. I mean, as an author of banned books, how do you think the viewers at home should help bring awareness to this issue and combat censorship?
Yeah, gosh. I know, because it can get so scary, I feel like, where you're just like, well, these people are banning these books, like, and it's a really concerted effort to ban the books. And so what can we do to help? I think that there's so many different ways. I think that if you're comfortable in front of a group, or comfortable, being out in public, you can go to like the meetings where these things are happening, right? So the school board meetings are a good way to sort of get in, right away and kind of make your voice heard. I know they will often take testimony from people and from, even, local students, which is great to say, you know what, like it's really good that these books are in here, and maybe why the books that are being banned specifically should be in the library, why it has impacted them, why it has helped them. I think when people hear those sorts of specific examples, it's really hard to ignore. Someone is telling you right in front of your face, this is the reason that these books should not be banned. I believe very much in like, writing letters. So maybe writing letters to local politicians and lawmakers, because so much of this stuff starts, kind of in our backyard, right? And then works its way up. So I think hearing from people who are saying, this kind of stuff isn't right, like, is very important. I think talking about it is good. Just even this is really great. I think a lot of people sort of hear about book banning and think, well, that's just this problem over here. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect people in my community, but it is. And it does, even in our more sort of, liberal state that we live in. Like, there's still, of course, pockets of people who really have the same views as maybe more conservative places. So I think it's important to just speak up and let it be known that, we're not going to put up with this. And then for me specifically, I'm speaking from a very specialized point of view, but as an author, I often get the question, like, does it make you want to stop, like, knowing your books are banned, does it make you want to stop writing those types of books and like kind of pivot? And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, it just makes me want to keep writing these types of books, because I'm not writing them with the intention of them being banned. I'm writing them to write about things that should be written about and talked about and taught and learned. So yeah, it can seem really like insurmountable, I think, but I think just kind of getting in where you feel comfortable, whether again that's writing or showing up or whatever. I think all of that comes together to make this really powerful collective effort.
Do you have any advice or words of inspiration for young readers and writers?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, the hardest thing is to just sit down and write. I think even for myself, I'm kind of giving this advice to myself right now. I had a small break between working on, the book that came out in October and then the book that I'm revising now. And if I take too long, I kind of start to doubt myself. And that might sound kind of silly for someone who has several books out, but I talk to other authors all the time and they feel the same way. Honestly, like I didn't do it this time, but in the past, quite recently, I would say within the last couple of years, I have Googled how do you write a book? Like, not even kidding. Like it's just you just kind of the self-doubt is just so powerful that it just creeps in, even if you know how to do it. I guess my first piece of advice would be like, don't think that everybody else knows what they're doing because they don't. Even people who like have several books out, we have those moments of self-doubt of can I do this? Like, how do I do this? So there's that. Reading, of course, is probably just, I think, the most important thing. I know for me personally, if I'm not reading, I'm really not in the mood to write. And so I think like, especially like it's so fun when you're reading something really, really great and you can't put it down and you're like, I can't wait to sit down at my computer, sit down with my notebook and start writing my own thing. Like just that inspirational spark is so important. And then adding on to that, I would say to read different things. So I can get really in my like contemporary fiction or historical fiction, just like realistic fiction. I can get kind of in that, area and just like kind of not want to pull my head up and read something else. But it's really important to read all genres, read different types of media. So I will read, I try to go back to like when I was a little kid, when I would read like anything I could get my hands on. So newspapers, magazines, just different types of books. Like I'm not the biggest like fantasy reader, but I try to read at least one or two fantasy books a year, just so I kind of know what's going on. I just recently I'm also a copy editor and a proofreader. And so I recently read this really cool vampire book that's I proofread it. It's a really cool vampire book that's coming out. I've never read a vampire book. And so it was like really different for me, but I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And I ended up absolutely loving it. So yeah, I think like different things can kind of spark inspiration from like areas that you didn't expect it, I guess. So I always say to read very widely.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know we're all here very avid readers and writers, and that's actually really inspiring to hear you talk about how, it's difficult for you to write a lot of the time too, because I'm sure every young writer, struggles with looking at other things that they're reading and thinking like, damn, I wish I could write like that. Like, why can't I write like that? But some good words of inspiration to keep writing, and of course to keep reading. If you're open to it, we have a kind of fun little band book themed game
Yeah.
that we planned to test your knowledge of band literature, I guess.
Oh boy. Okay.
No, do not worry. I guess how this is going to work is we have a few books that have either been banned or they have not been banned anywhere yet. And we wanted to have you guess whether the book was banned or it hasn't been banned.
Okay, I can do that.
So, first one we have on our list is the book The Summer I Turned Pretty. What are your thoughts?
I don't think it's been banned.
It has been banned.
Oh my God. I mean, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And as I was saying that, I was like, I'm sure it has been because I don't think it has been. That is so, oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, wow.
The next one on our list is Dracula.
Oh, I would imagine Dracula has been banned. Probably. I haven't read it, but I would imagine it has been.
It has not been banned.
Oh my God. I'm over 2. Okay. Wow.
The next book is beloved YA novel by me and many other Golden State readers as well, Percy Jackson. What do you think?
I think it has been.
Percy Jackson has not been banned. I think it's been challenged.
Oh,
but
okay. I'm really, really not doing very well here, but I'm learning a lot. So.
And then lastly, the Lorax.
I am almost positive the Lorax has been banned, or at least challenged. Okay.
It is banned. The reason it's been banned is really interesting to me. It was banned by a group of parents in a school district in California because it was during a time when the logging industry was like a big part of California's economy, I guess, and they thought that it would inspire children to rise up against the logging industry. So,
oh my God, that is really interesting. That's not what I expected. I don't know what I expected, but that is wild. Okay.
Thank you for playing our little game.
Thank you. I only got
And,
one, but I will take that.
They were intentionally tricky.
Yeah, it was a good quiz. Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us today.
Of course.
Your books are so inspirational to me. Pointe is literally the most important book I've ever read in my life.
Oh,
I just want to say that.
oh.
So thank you so much for speaking with us. It's always so amazing to meet authors and like hear what you guys have to say.
Thank you so much.
You've been so lovely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all so much. It was wonderful to meet you. I really appreciate
Yes.
what you're doing. Wishing you all the best
Thank you so
luck.
much.
Thank you.